Hi everyone, welcome to week 2. In week 2 you're going to be reading chapters 3 and 4 and you're going to be working in the discussion board, number 2. Now discussion board number 2 is going to be focused on the same characteristics as last week. You want to make sure you have an in-text citation and reference for your initial post in APA formatting, 2 peer responses of at least 1 paragraph in length, and all of your work completed by Saturday at 11:55. For this week, we're going to be looking at comparative absolute advantage, why trading exists. Now, a person or a country, I'm going to do it both ways in this example. A person has a comparative advantage at producing something if he can produce it at a lower cost than anyone else. Having comparative advantage is not the same thing as being the best at something. And it's not being based on being the largest country as well. In fact, someone can be completely unskilled at doing something, yet still have a comparative advantage at doing it. How can that happen? Well, let's first take some vocabulary and let's apply this. Someone who is best at doing something is said to have an absolute advantage. Michael Jordan has an absolute advantage at basketball. For all I know, Michael Jordan may be the fastest typist in the world, giving him an absolute advantage at typing too. But I don't know, I'm just making up an example. Since he's better at typing than you, can't he type more cheaply than you? That is, if someone has an absolute advantage in something, does he automatically have a comparative advantage? So if you're the best at it, does that mean you also have the lower opportunity cost in it? The answer is no. If Jordan takes time out from shooting hoops to do all of his own typing, he sacrifices the large income he earns from entertaining fans of basketball. If instead his secretary does the typing, the secretary gives up an alternate secretarial job or perhaps a much lower salary playing basketball. That is, the secretary is the lower cost typist. The secretary, not Michael Jordan, has the comparative advantage at typing. The trick to understanding comparative advantage is the phrase lower cost. What it costs someone to produce something is the opportunity cost or basically the value of what you have to give up. Someone may have an absolute advantage at producing every single thing, but he has a comparative advantage at many few things, and probably 1 or 2 things. Amazingly, everyone has a comparative advantage at something. Let's look at another example. Suppose you and your roommate want to clean the house and cook a great chicken dinner for your friends one night. The easy case is when you are each better at one activity. If you're an accomplished chef while your roommate doesn't know the range from the oven, or if after you vacuum the carpet, the dust bunnies haven't shifted from under the sofa to the coffee table, while your roommate can vacuum, dust, polish silverware faster than you can unwrap the vacuum cleaner cord. Then you and your roommate will each be better off if you cook and the roommate cleans. It's easy to see that you each have a comparative advantage in one activity because you have an absolute advantage in the other activity. The magic of comparative advantage is that everyone has a comparative advantage of producing something in these examples I gave you. The upshot is quite extraordinary. Everyone stands to gain from trade, even though those who are at a disadvantage at every task still have something valuable to offer. Those who have natural or learned absolute advantage can even do better for themselves by focusing on those skills and by buying other goods and services from those who produce them at comparatively low cost. When David Ricardo first illustrated the importance of comparative advantage in the early 1800s, he solved a problem that eluded even Adam Smith. Comparative advantage explains why a country might produce and export something its citizens don't seem very skilled at producing when compared directly to the citizens of another country. The explanation of the apparent paradox is that citizens of the importing country must be even better at producing something else, making it worth for them to pay to have work done by the exporting country. Amazingly, the citizens of each country are better off specializing in producing only the goods at which they have a comparative advantage. even if one country has an absolute advantage producing each item. One of the clearest explanations of comparative advantage ever written was in fact by Ricardo. He looked at examples from James Mill. Explanations, since Mill's typically around every updated examples, but he looked at comparative and absolute advantage. Trading should be based on comparative advantage, which means who has the lower opportunity cost, compared to who is the bigger country. Now, when you look at the discussion board for this week, you're going to be looking at, if you're a small country, would you have that absolute or comparative advantage, given the scenario above? In your analysis, make sure to key in on what is comparative, what is absolute, what are the benefits to the country. And just like last week, I'm more than willing to pre-grade any of the work you need me to, but everything ends on Saturday night. I wish you the best.